Tom joined the University Club in 1985, and he has been active in programs ever since. Tom was born in Hungary. You'll notice the accent.
Tom has an accent.
He came to the United States as a student in 1938, and while in this country, at the beginning of World War II, his homeland, Hungary, joined the German Axis. This automatically made Tom an enemy alien. After a considerable amount of official wrangling, Tom joined the United States Army, and because of his multiple language proficiency, he was almost immediately assigned to the OSS, the Office of Strategic Services. The OSS was our country's intelligence agency during the war. And the OSS was the post-war forerunner of the Central Intelligence Agency. When World War II ended, Tom stayed on with the CIA, and he worked for them for the next 34 years. Tom has held a number of senior level positions. He's been the CIA Chief of Station in Austria, Germany, Argentina, Mexico, and he was the last CIA Station Chief in Vietnam, at the time the largest CIA operation in the world. Tom holds numerous decorations. For example, he received the Distinguished Intelligence Service Medal twice. He has the State Department's Award for Valor. And he holds a special decoration, a decoration for boarding a hijacked airplane in Buenos Aires and talking the hijackers into surrendering. Following his retirement from the CIA, he became a consultant to the Defense Department. Since I've known him, the British Broadcasting Company has taken Tom back to Vietnam for a documentary that they were making, and also since I've known Tom, he's gone to South America to rescue 2 American oilmen, Americans in Ecuador, who had been captured by guerrillas and who were being held for ransom. Today, Tom has become the University Club's unofficial historian. He has a great memory, a great mind, and he is interesting. For this history group presentation today, Tom reached back into his files for information concerning the writing of Bob Woodward's book, Deep Throat. He'll speak to the power of America's free press and the importance of good intelligence. Who better to make this presentation? Tom knows Bob Woodward, and he knew President Nixon. It gives me a great deal of pleasure to bring to the lectern my friend, Tom Polgar.
Thank you, Wilfred. This introduction is hard to top. Anyway, here we go. Sherry Levy asked me to talk about deep throat. I was a little bit surprised, but then she made it clear she wanted to hear about Bob Woodward's secret source in the FBI, not the other deep throat. Actually, for me, the 2 deep throats are connected. In March 1973, I was in San Clemente, California, at President Nixon's alternate White House. I was CIA Station Chief in Vietnam at that time, and I was called to San Clemente to help brief President Nixon in anticipation of his meeting with the President of Vietnam. One day in San Clemente, Henry Kissinger, who I had known for some years, gave me breakfast. And during the breakfast, he told me, and he drew diagrams explaining how the White House was being run like a mafia-like conspiracy, and that the arch criminal was Chief of Staff Bob Haldeman. He thought I should know this because he was very pessimistic about the future of the Nixon presidency in the circumstances, and he thought that if something happens to Nixon, it will have an impact on the cause of South Vietnam. That unfortunately turned out to be true. We didn't work on Sundays, so for $7, those were the days, I rented a car and I decided to get acquainted with Los Angeles. On Sunset Boulevard, a movie house showed Deep Throat, so here's the connection. It's a porno movie with an unlikely plot. Today, however, I will talk about the other Deep Throat, her Sherry's favorite. Deep Throat was Bob Woodward's designation for a senior FBI official who, on terms and times of his own choosing, provided Robert Woodward of the Washington Post with information on White House involvement on the Watergate burglary in Washington. And I emphasize on his own terms and of his own choosing. It was always Deep Throat who set the meeting times, and it was only Deep Throat who determined what he is going to give. Anyway, Woodward and his colleague Carl Bernstein used that information in their reporting about the White House role in the burglary. The Nixon administration was unable to contradict the accurate information. The media reporting led to congressional investigation with live television coverage. I remember the summer of 1974, I was on home leave and we watched with fascination all day the performance put on by Senator Sam Ervin and Congresswoman Elizabeth Holtzman. And anyway, the result of these investigations. President Nixon wrote a letter to the Secretary of State, and the full text of the letter. Dear Mr. Secretary, I hereby resign the office of the President of the United States. The Secretary of State who received this letter was Henry Kissinger. This was the dramatic climax of a bungled burglary in the upscale Watergate complex, a combination of hotel, condominiums, and office space on Virginia Avenue in downtown Virginia, Washington Southwest, in June 1972. I was in Saigon at that time, and I wasn't able to follow as the case developed blow by blow, but I recognized two names among those who were arrested by the police. They were James McCord and Howard Hunt. Now in Washington, it has happened occasionally when there was a burglary, particularly in the northwest part of town, I would recognize the name of the victim. This was the first time that I recognized the name of the burglars. They were indeed names very familiar to me. One was James McCord, and the other one was Howard Hunt. This, to me, already had a very bad smell. I knew it was the beginning of a bad story. James McCord